Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of Big Sound Small Town, the podcast that spotlights the talented and diverse musicians in small towns and communities. This season we're branching out to include the community of people who make it possible for musicians to be able to perform their music, the producers, the recording engineers, the venue owners, and many others, and as always, the small town musicians. Remember, small town doesn't mean small talent. Hear their stories.
I'll meet you on Highway 12, underneath the moonlight. Take all your troubles away, make everything alright. There's a place I know on the island of Oklahoma, summer love stories to tell, sunny days we love so well. I remember way back then, that was many years ago. First time to live my life out on my own. Got a gig for tips in a bar, on Highway 12, underneath the moonlight. Take all your troubles away, make everything alright. There's a place I know on the island of Oklahoma, summer love stories to tell, sunny days we love so well. On Highway 12, underneath the moonlight. Take all your troubles away, make everything alright. There's a place I know on the island of Oklahoma, summer love stories to tell, sunny days we love so well. Drive all night until the blacktop ends. Take the midnight ferry to where it all begins. I'll meet you on Highway 12, underneath the moonlight. Take all your troubles away, make everything alright. There's a place I know on the island of Oklahoma, summer love stories to tell, sunny days we love so well. I'll meet you on Highway 12, underneath the moonlight. Take all your troubles away, make everything alright.
Today on Big Sound Small Town, I'm in the pink room of the Big Bass Studio, and my guest is freelance bassist, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and educator, Kim France. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So I know that you are working with so many acts that it's hard to keep. It's really hard to figure out which ones they are. So why don't you just start off by telling everyone who you're playing with these days, prior to the quarantine.
Well, prior to the COVID-19 shutdown.
Right.
I've been playing with Aaron Burdett, songwriter out of Saluda, quite a bit, and we've been recording some new tracks, which is pretty exciting. We were set to go in the studio in April. I don't know if that'll still happen, but I keep pretty busy with Aaron, and then also with the Johnson City Symphony Orchestra, and Molasses Creek also from out on Ocracoke Island. I've got a bunch of other small projects around Boone that I do, like the Mercury Dames, and we do vintage vocal harmony stuff, sort of like the Andrews Sisters.
Oh, that's cool.
And a little bit of jazz here and there, but primarily Aaron Burdett and the Johnson City Symphony this time of year.
Okay. Well, let's start then with Aaron. I have heard you guys and seen you guys, so I know what you do, but describe what it is that goes on there and what your role is there.
Well, so Aaron is the songwriter, and he is a pretty prolific songwriter in my opinion.
He is very much so, I agree.
Yeah, he spins them out, and they're fabulous, and they're deep, and they make the audience cry, and when he sends me a track, sometimes it makes me cry.
I understand.
He's very deep, intuitive, emotional songwriter, but so his style, I guess you would call it, I mean, we've struggled to find the right genre for it. It's Americana, it's working man, singer-songwriter stuff. It's not bluegrass, although we are leaning toward the bluegrass instrumentation these days because it seems to showcase the songs in the best way.
Yeah, I think
it's easier to travel that way.
Well, I thought I saw you guys with a mandolin player. Are you working as a trio or a duo?
We're working as a trio, and occasionally Aaron and I will do stuff as a duo. When Daniel Olam, who is our mandolin player, as of, he's been with us a few months now, if he is not available or if it's a smaller
right.
smaller show, then
I do.
2 people.
Sure. The band I'm in, we go in, it can go as a whole band, or it can go as individuals or duos or trios. There's a lot of ways, depending on the money.
Yeah. Well, we were doing that for a long time, sort of coming with different combinations, and he used to play with a full electric band with pedal steel,
right,
drums, and electric bass, and the powers that be in the record company office just really encouraged us to get the same combo out there every time, and to focus on the acoustic trio for now.
I was getting ready. That was one of the things I was asking you. Were you and he playing electric at all in the shows? I mean,
we have.
Okay.
It's sort of been a mix of both until recently, and now it's pretty much the acoustic stuff. It's funny, he and I met, we met years ago because he lived in Boone, and I've been living in Boone and splitting my time between there and Ocracoke Island for the past 6 years. But he was invited to play at the Ocracoke Music Festival, and I play down there with Molasses Creek, and he needed a bass player, and so our old buddy Brian Swank, who was a banjo player from Boss Hog back in the day,
right,
bluegrass band I played with ages ago up in Boone, gave him my number, and so we met the day before we stepped on the festival stage, and he sent me a lot of recordings of his songs, and I basically learned the stuff, and then we had one rehearsal, and then we got on stage, and it really clicked.
Oh, that's
so
good.
We've been together ever since.
That's good. That's a good thing, then. I mean, I like what you guys are doing. I was impressed enough with your playing and singing to seek you out. So, I mean, call that a bass player in me. I don't know. But I was impressed. I heard you guys also, and saw it at WNCW. So
yes. Oh man. Well, they have a great tube preamp in that studio.
They do. I agree.
Made my bass sound amazing.
I totally agree. That it's come so long. I did some of the first stuff in WNCW, and to see where it is now is just totally insane. I mean, it's really grown. The Studio B's really grown over the years.
Yeah. Well, that was a really good. Turned out to be a really good show for us, and obviously playing on WNCW is good for anybody's publicity. Sure. But a lot of people saw that and have reached out to me since, because they managed to catch that interview.
I agree. It was really, really good. It was one of my most enjoyable there in a while. I really thought it was a really fine interview, and you guys played great. It's the trio. I think it sure was working there when I saw you guys. The trio worked really well. In fact,
it seems to be working really well, and I think we've done 2 mini tours now. The first one was sort of a get to know each other run, and we went down to Florida and played a few shows. And then we did another little mini tour in Eastern Carolina, New Bern, Beaufort, and Salter Pass, and it kind of started to really click after. And they're great to travel with too. So that's lovely. That's a big part of a band.
It is.
Staying healthy and staying together is just being good people to be with on the road. And both Daniel and Aaron are just fabulous.
Well, I actually like the version of Let's Take a Rockefeller. I like that better without the banjo, but that's just me. You know,
I can't believe you're saying that.
Particularly where I live. I mean, this is Cleveland County. I'll probably something will strike me down probably before this day is over, because I did not.
It's almost blasphemous to say anything down on the banjo where you're from.
Oh, it really is. But I think the reason I will tell you that is you support it really well without that having to be there.
Well, that's great, because the banjo is such a unique instrument.
It is
a driving force, and it's such a presence in that song.
Yeah, it is.
I've been a little worried about how it would come off without us having a banjo player on stage with us.
Actually, it's kind of a cooler song without it, because it kind of takes it knocks it a little past bluegrass and maybe more towards Americana. I don't know that that's a good or a bad thing. It just changes the way the song sounds to me personally. You know, it's like one edges towards bluegrass and the other edges towards maybe more Americana. I don't know.
I was wondering what genre you were going to come up with, because that's been
I don't know.
something we've struggled with a little bit. Yeah, Americana is such a broad term, which is great, because then we know that we actually fit in that category. But
it is
a subcategory. I'm not sure what it is.
I used to have a band, and we call what we did rural alternative, which was the best.
That's creative. I like that.
And that is what I would call what you guys are, is rural alternative, which is, it's not bluegrass. It's an alternative to country, to bluegrass, even to Americana. So it's a pretty cool sound. All right, let's take on another gig you've got going on. Let's go to the next one that you were doing this time of year. Let's go to Johnson City.
Johnson City Symphony Orchestra. I think it's been about 10 years I've been playing with the orchestra over there. I'd have to look. It always surprises me how long it's been. And we had 2 concerts this month that got canceled, and one next month that won't be happening. So our this season is over.
Right.
And I guess we'll pick it back up in April. But that's not what I meant to say. Pick it back up in September. September.
Okay.
September is when our season starts for next year. But I love playing with that orchestra. The conductor, Robert Seebacher, is just super passionate and picks great material, and I love classical music. There's nothing so moving as playing with all those other people on the stage and that enormous sound and the complexity of the music of these composers is just mind blowing, and it just fills me.
I understand that. Yes.
Emotion to play with an orchestra like that, and then of course, if you're a bass player and a lover of the sound of the bass, there's nothing better than four basses playing together. With bows, and it's just so. I just love it. We were getting ready to play Mendelssohn's Scottish Symphony. We were doing this next concert was going to be a Scotland theme, and we were going to do Scottish Fantasy and a piece with a bagpiper, and so I was really bummed that didn't happen. But it was also some of the hardest music that I was going to have to practice this year. So now maybe we'll get to perform those pieces next year, and there's more time to work on them.
Well, yeah, I guess that is true. And how often would you have to rehearse with this symphony?
Well, so our season is we usually do approximately one concert a month between September and April. So sometimes we have like an extra concert in there. We'll do a pops concert outdoors. Our first concert of the season is an outdoor pops thing, which is more a lot of patriotic songs that everybody's familiar with.
Right.
And then we do another pops concert with a guest artist at the end of the season. And we had Bella Fleck has played. We did Bella Fleck's.
Yeah, that's cool.
Band, I can't remember the name of the piece off the top of my head. And Mark O'Connor's double fiddle concerto.
Oh yeah. So
we've had some stellar guests that we've had John Pizzarelli, who's a jazz guitarist and singer. So we've had some amazing guest artists come through, and that gets us out of just the strictly classical genre into some new territory, which is pretty exciting. Mm-hmm. But we'll do one concert a month, and our rehearsal cycle is basically we get together on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for rehearsal, and then we put the concert on Saturday night.
Okay.
And so basically we have a rehearsal cycle, but the idea is that everybody has the music ahead of time and comes prepared to play it. Yep.
That's good.
And so that preparation time for me is pretty intense because I started playing music a lot later in life than most of my colleagues did. So what might be second nature to them is an awful lot of work and woodshedding for me. But at the same time, I think that I was going to say that might increase my appreciation of it, but I know that everybody in that orchestra loves what they do.
Oh, yeah. That is one of the premier jobs that you could ever have, I think. It's those are wonderful, without a doubt. Well, that's we're gonna take a break here because I got some questions for you.
Okay.
All right, I'm back with Kim France, and she says she came late. Now here she is playing classical music, yet on double bass. Yet she claims she came to music late in life. So, all right, Kim, tell me about it.
Well, so I started playing bass when I was getting ready to turn 30. It was about the eve of my 30th birthday when I got my first upright bass, and it was a loaner, and it belonged to a friend of mine who played in a band, and I had a banjo. I had been working on learning to play banjo and guitar for a few years prior to that, and I let him borrow my banjo, and he let me borrow his bass, and I went looking. I had just moved back to Boone, and I went looking around for jobs, and I wanted to work in music somehow, and ended up just through walking into music shops and asking people about employment. Met Barry Sauls, who needed a bass player, and said, do you play bass? And I said, well, not really, but I've got one. And he said, well, how about you join us at our weekly gig on Thursday night, and we'll see if you fit. And I was absolutely terrified because I had no idea what I was doing. But I went, and I guess I did okay because they were like, that was fabulous. You're our new bass player.
Wow.
And so I've been playing bass full time ever since then. But prior to that, a few years before that, when I was probably about 26, I started playing guitar. And I've known from the time I was a little kid that I loved music.
Right.
And I really, my parents took me to see a lot of classical music.
Sure.
I grew up in Ohio, and we went to see the Cleveland Symphony Orchestra quite a bit. And I remember being mesmerized by the violins. They all moved in synchronicity, and
Yeah.
I just loved the stringed instruments, and I really wanted to play. I finally convinced them to let me take piano lessons. So I did take 2 years of piano as a girl because I just knew I wanted to learn music, and so I taught myself to play Yankee Doodle on the piano. And then I took about 2 years of piano lessons and hated every minute of it, and quit. And so then I wanted to play cello, and they said, well, no. And then I wanted to play guitar, and they said, no, you can't have one. You had your chance with that piano, and if you don't sit down and play that piano, you're not getting another instrument. So I didn't, and I didn't pick up music again. That was probably about age 11. I think I took piano when I was 10 and 11, which is, I'm sure the little bit I did for those 2 years helped me a lot later on.
I'm sure, particularly with the reading, I'm sure it did.
Yeah, I was never very good at the reading, though. I always would hear the stuff and try to memorize it. My teacher was instantly frustrated with me. And so I didn't really, there were about 5 notes on the staff that I was familiar with. And if you got outside those 5 notes, I didn't do too well. But so I didn't really pick up music again till I was about 26. And I was living out on Ocracoke Island. And I had there's this group of friends that would sit together in the yard of the Ocracoke Coffee Company and play bluegrass. And I was just mesmerized by that, too. And the way that, when they were in it, they were just, it transported you to another world. And I decided I wanted to play guitar. And so somewhere around that time, I had gone on a hitchhiking trip, sort of a self-discovery or vision quest or what have you, and I took off by myself, which was something I did then and would never do again, but I did it when I was younger and dumber. But I went around North Carolina and Virginia, and everybody that picked me up happened to be a musician.
That's too cool.
Yeah, down to the guy, the truck driver driving the 18-wheeler who played the didgeridoo.
Now, what do you think the chances of how many truck drivers do you think do that? Not many.
You're right. It was crazy. I mean, it was insane that, and so I considered that like a divine sign. And sure. I did save up, and I got myself a used Yamaha guitar. I think I paid $150 for my first guitar, and at the time it felt like thousands.
Yeah, I do.
And then I saved up, and I bought a car for about $1,200, and that felt enormous too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then I put the guitar in the car and drove to New Orleans.
What? What drove to New Orleans? You drove to New Orleans from?
I listened to the blues.
Okay.
And I just,
Yeah, I do.
How many songs there are where people? New Orleans is the subject matter of so much songwriting.
I agree totally.
And something about it. It called to me, and I said, "Well, that must be where I need to go."
Musically, it's a good place.
Without knowing a soul.
You're brave. I will give you that. You're brave. Or adventure.
Yeah.
We'll call it adventuresome. So.
Yeah, it's definitely and it was an adventure. So I drove into New Orleans. I got there late one night, and I had an old friend who was living outside of Jackson, Mississippi, and I stopped there, and then I drove into New Orleans, and just, I thought I was going to be able to find a boarding house. I don't know what century I thought I was living in, but I thought surely, there's a boarding house, and I can just go rent a room for next to nothing and get on my feet and find a job. Well, such a thing didn't exist. So I went to all the coffee shops. This is back in the days of newspaper and before cell phones, and I met people. I asked about places to rent, and I had the hardest time finding a place, and I got pretty discouraged. I drove back up to my friend's place in Mississippi, which was camped out in the state forest there, and got my guts up and went back down and tried again. And in a few days, I was back down there, and I was standing in line in this coffee shop asking the people behind the counter if they knew of a place where I could rent a room. And the woman in front of me in line turned around and said, I've got a room coming available in my house in just a few days. If you want to stay on the couch until then, you can have it. So
wow.
The fellow that was renting that room moved out, and I moved into his room, and he was a heavy smoker, and he was smoking inside that bedroom for a really long time. So I painted it, I cleaned it, I bleached the walls, and this was back in the day when I didn't have any money. I found a futon mattress on the side of the road, and I found a little table and a little chair in somebody's trash out on, I can't remember what street it was, and brought it home, and there were my furnishings. So I sat at that little table for the next 6 months and taught myself to play guitar out of a book with a tape.
That's crazy. Were you finding jobs, or were you just sitting in there playing for the most part?
I did find a job. I found a job at it was called Rue de la Course coffee shop on Magazine Street, and the place I had found to rent was beautiful. I was so lucky. It was a house in the Garden District.
Oh, yeah.
One of those beautiful sections of the Garden District, but it was like the most run-down house
part of it, yeah.
Neighborhood. So the rent was still affordable, and there were 3 of us living there. And I had a beautiful room that opened onto a little courtyard, and I could walk to the coffee shop to work. I barely made enough to eat. And it's funny because how everybody's got to run on toilet paper now because we had the COVID-19 thing.
Right.
I was too poor to buy toilet paper back then, so I would get old newspapers and bring them home. We had a stack of newspapers and a toilet in the bathroom.
So this is nothing new to you.
No, I feel like I'm prepared.
Oh, yeah, you're prepared. All right. Did you get to play music while you were there?
No. So, I played music in my room.
Right, but just in your room.
Learning.
Right.
I was a brand new beginner, and I would love to go back. I've thought many times about moving back to New Orleans since, now that I'm playing bass, and
sure.
I play more jazz, and I love the style of music. I've been back to visit. I did go to a jazz education network, a Gen conference there
right.
A few years ago with some of the faculty and students from App State University.
Right.
And that was great. We didn't bring my bass, of course, because there was a bunch of us in the van. And,
oh, yeah.
The bass
I do.
is not the easiest thing to be hauling around. But, so I didn't really get to play much. I did go down to the French Quarter. I had a little routine. On Sundays, I would hop on the St. Charles streetcar and ride down to the French Quarter and just wander around and let myself be inspired, because there were musicians on every street corner.
True.
There were crazy little voodoo shops where they had like snake skins and incense. And I mean, the French Quarter was amazing. And then I'd go out and listen to music, and I would usually, you could stay out till dawn in New Orleans and not realize that time had passed. And suddenly, the sun's coming up, and they're hosing down the street.
Sure.
You know?
I do.
It's just amazing. So I took my guitar out a couple times and would play with, if I met a street musician. I met this one guy he would stand on a milk crate, and he had 2 strings on his guitar, but he was amazing. He played blues, and I don't think he had enough money to buy strings. And I went and played with him a couple times, but mostly I was in my bedroom practicing.
Right, practicing. Yeah, I mean, everybody has to woodshed and do that at some point in their life. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But you actually got to do it in a really cool Music City. I mean, as a band, you can work there 4 different places in a day. You know, I mean, you can work.
Oh, I know.
You know, you can work from lunchtime to breakfast and play 4 different places. So, I mean, it's or 5, just depending on how hard you want to work. I mean, it is an amazing music place.
Of the street musicians make a really good living too.
I agree. I mean, it's North Carolina's version of that is it's a low rent version, but it's some of the buskers in Asheville. You know, some of those people can do pretty well, but it's not New Orleans by any means.
No, it's not. New Orleans is, I mean, that's what a lot of people, I think a lot of the tourists go down, well, they go down there for all kinds of reasons, but that's just one of the draws.
Sure it is.
Fabulous musicians.
Fabulous.
With so much soul.
You're right.
On every street corner.
Plus,
I remember when I lived there, I had left to go up to visit my friends in Mississippi, I don't know, for the weekend or something, and I was coming back. And this was typical. You would be driving back into New Orleans, you cross the bridge, you get into town, and then suddenly traffic is halted because there's the second line of the funeral procession.
I love the second line.
Everybody's in the streets playing music. It's just, there's nowhere like it on earth.
There's not.
Still has a very special place in my heart. I love that town.
Oh, plus we're not even going to talk about the food.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I lived there, I was too poor to buy much of anything. But when I went back to visit after I moved away, I ate a lot better than I did when I lived there.
So how long did you stay there?
Unfortunately, I was only there it was somewhere between 6 and 8 months. And I kind of wish I had stayed. But I met this young man who convinced me that we were going to start a band and tour the United States. And never listen to a young man who tries to woo you away.
I agree. I mean, listen, we can say this, the two of us, but just don't get involved with a musician at all. I mean, male or female, it works both ways. Just don't.
Yeah, I've been told.
You know, just don't do it. So.
Yeah. So I was stars in my eyes of a musical future. You know.
Right.
Gave up my prime living situation in New Orleans and went traveled with this guy for just a little bit before it became absolutely clear that he was very much he wasn't nearly as interested in making music as he was other things, and that was not in my agenda.
Right, gotcha.
So after that, unfortunately I didn't have my place in New Orleans. They had a new roommate, and I just went back to Ocracoke and started and continued playing music on Ocracoke from there.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where I met John Davis and Mark Shimmick and Kevin King.
Yeah.
Who had a little band, those fellas, I'm sure you know some of those names.
I know Mark, yeah.
Yeah, and so they were all down on Ocracoke for the summer, coming down from Boone, and they had got themselves a little house gig at the Jolly Roger, and the Jolly Roger has they've got a marina and a waterfront restaurant, and then across the road, the owners at that time owned the Silver Lake Motel. So they gave them a room and a gig every night of the week except Sunday. And so I started playing with those guys a lot.
Those are good people to play with when you're starting out. That would be excellent people to play with.
Yeah. And so, and we were so young, and but we had so much fun partying and playing music, and we played music all day long.
Yeah.
We would go out and we would play for tips, you know, during the lunch hour, and then they would have their nightly gig, and they would let me sit in pretty much whenever I wanted to, and then we would all go out to the beach and play music at night on the beach, you know, with hippies going skinny dipping in the water, or people drinking cheap beer.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Plus
we had a ball.
Plus it's Ocracoke, which has its own cool, beside New Orleans, I mean, it has its own cool niche too. I mean, it's Ocracoke.
Oh, yeah. And so then I started playing music with those guys, and they're the reason I ended up moving up to Boone, because I just loved playing with them so much, and I wanted to keep playing with them. So first I went to Asheville. I'd met a lot of musicians from the Asheville area too, and I went and moved there for a couple months, and it just didn't fit me as well as Boone did. I liked the smaller town.
Sure, I do.
Size, and so I moved not into Boone proper, but we had a little farmhouse way outside, kind of in the sticks, sort of near the border of Tennessee. And moved up there, lived in this little farmhouse, and continued to play music. And at that point, mostly bluegrass, you know.
Right.
And that's what those guys were playing.
So, at what point did you move to bass among this?
So, well, a few years down the road after that, so I moved to Boone. This was in '99, and I was playing guitar. And then about 2001, I think it was, I went up to Maine to visit a friend of mine from Ocracoke who moved back to her home state. And I went to visit her because she was having a baby. And I drove up there, and I didn't come back for 2 years. I met a guy and then fell in love, if you want to call it that, and I ended up staying in Portland, Maine for 2 years and played in a bluegrass band there called the Hacksaws. And I played guitar with them. And then I missed Sugar Grove, and I just longed for the mountains outside of Boone. Like this place is near and dear to my heart, and I missed it like crazy. But I was up there going to these bluegrass festivals with my band and stuff, and we went to this one, I think it was Thomas Point Beach Bluegrass Festival, and I had a washtub bass that I had been playing, that I had put together with, you know, a broomstick,
sure,
and a piece of the clothesline and a big old washtub.
Yep.
And I took it out to this festival, and I was hauling it around to different campsites, and we're playing music and stuff, and I noticed that whenever I would sit and watch a jam, I was always mesmerized by the bass players. I mean, I was enraptured by the bass players, and I sort of realized that I guess I really wanted to play the bass, and so that washtub, I let people play it because, you know, it's just a washtub. It's
sure.
not like lending out your fine instrument. So
right.
That washtub made its rounds, and it never came back. Like my friend and I said, oh yeah, go take it to that jam, and they lost it, and I never saw it again. And it was right after that I moved back to North Carolina, and that's when I exchanged instruments with my friend. I've been taking banjo lessons
right.
up in Maine, and working on like Bella Fleck tunes and stuff. I played a couple of them okay.
Oh, that's good.
But I can't play the banjo worth a darn now. I haven't picked it up in ages. But I moved back to Sugar Grove and had this friend who had an upright bass that he let me borrow, and I let him borrow my banjo, and then before I knew it, I had gigs. It was just, they tell you everybody needs a bass player.
True. Well, I mean, that is true because I'm a fiddler, but if you're in, say, a bluegrass band, well, if you lose a bass player, you don't have to have that fiddle player. So guess what? You got to have that bass player. So I've been a reluctant bass player most of my career. So I do understand that. I mean, it's an easy way to work. That's for sure.
It is an easy way to work. And it's sort of, I had a friend up in Maine, I remember when I was still playing guitar, but was interested in bass. And he said, you start playing bass, you'll never play that guitar again because everybody will want you to play bass.
This is true. This is true.
And it's kind of true.
And once you learn to play, if you're an upright bass player, you can play forever. I don't know if you can make any money, but you can play forever.
Yeah, as long as your joints hold up and you.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So I started playing bass, and I think I mentioned that I moved back to Boone, and I went out looking for work, and Brian Swank reminded me of this the other day, and I don't even remember saying this, but I had gone out looking for jobs, and I'd gone into the music shops and stuff, and I went into this one shop, Barry Sauls owned it, called the Mountain Pirate in Boone, and I guess I went in and said, I'm looking for an earn-to-learn kind of situation, and Brian said, boy, that takes balls. I can't believe you said that.
That's what I'm thinking too.
But I had worked on a construction crew while I was up in Maine, actually, and it was sort of a similar thing. Like, I wanted to learn how to build houses, and I thought, well, I mean, somebody will hire me, and I can learn how to build things while I'm getting paid, and I did. But I wanted to learn more about music, and I wanted to be doing something in the industry, and I knew I was a hard worker, so I went out looking for a job, and that's when Barry said, well, can you play bass? And I said, well, I mean, not really, but I have one at my house, and that's when he invited me out to play their weekly gig with them, and then, it was one and done. I was a member of the band after that, and have been playing bass ever since, full time, pretty much.
That's fabulous. I mean, that's an excellent story. How you got there. Now, I guess
it's a little crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a great story. I love a story, and that's a great one. So now, I mean, I guess you just woodshedded and learned by experience, hands-on type deal, right?
Well, yeah, I started out with. So I played guitar for like 4 years, 5 years, probably 4 or 5 years, somewhere in there at that point. And for me, like, going from guitar to bass seemed easy to me.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I agree.
You already know what the notes are. It's
right.
just a matter of how far apart they are. And honestly, that construction experience, I think, helps me with
strong hands.
Of like, well, that, and also knowing, like, okay, so here's where your G note is, what related to the guitar, how much further apart is that A on the E string? And
True.
It's just sort of, I don't know, it was a spatial thing, and I thought, well, yeah, it's just the same thing, it's just bigger. So, yeah, I started playing bass and ended up reconnecting with John Davis and Mark Shimmick, and playing with them, because they always wanted me to play bass back in the day on Ocracoke, and I told them, I was like, I can't afford to buy a bass.
Right.
So no. And I did. I borrowed a bass when I was back in Boone for most of my gigs for a few months, and then I financed my first K. I got a 1967 K, and I bought it from Bob Bierman.
I know. I know Bob.
Great resource.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bob's repaired my uprights. When I break them, he repairs them. He's a good guy.
Yeah. So I bought my first K from him, and it was more than I'd spent on anything in my life at that point.
I'm sure.
I never bought a car that cost that much, or my first guitars. I traded up
right
through the you get a guitar and then you trade it in and get something a little bit better every time.
Sure.
And I just about had a heart attack when I spent the money on that bass, but honestly, it paid for itself fairly quickly,
yeah.
And I was able to pay off the note,
Right.
And
are you still playing that bass?
I'm still playing it. Yep. And that's the one I play when I do bluegrass or jazz, or when I play with Aaron Burdett. And I recently got a carved bass for using with the orchestra.
Yeah, with the orchestra. Yeah. That's I play a 1950 upright bass, and I'm in K, and I love it. It works for nearly everything I do that's acoustic.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's great. I call it the Ford truck.
Yeah, they are.
Of basses. It's a hard worker and it's tough and
Yep.
it'll go the distance.
Yeah, they will. I mean, they're wonderful. I'm the same way. I totally believe in them. Actually, while we're on that, when you play with Aaron, are you running straight acoustic, or do you have a pickup on your bass?
I do. I have a pickup. I use a David Gage Realist.
Yeah, that's what I use.
I'm currently using a Mark bass amp, so I usually run through the amp and then run a line out from the amp.
Yeah.
But I have discovered that I am ultra picky about tone, and with my bass and that pickup, the Mark bass sounds great on if I play electric bass, but if I'm playing, upright, I'm not big in the tone. I'm still looking for the right tone. And I've tried out acoustic image amps. I've tried out, I think Galley and Kruger is the one I like the best so far. But it's always a combination of the bass and the pickup and the amp. You know?
If you get a chance at some point, and can try out an Aguilar, that's what I use, and I'm a real believer in them because I play with a 500 watt head that weighs 2 pounds, and my cabinet weighs 10 pounds. And it works for any job. They're light. My tone is great. And the tone from my amp works whether it is an upright bass or an electric bass. It's so good.
What?
Aguilar.
Which amp head are you using?
I'm Power Hammer 500.
Power Hammer 500?
Yep. It's
All right, I'll look into it. I've been trying stuff out and searching for the right tone for a while. You're not the first person. Anybody that's an Aguilar person is 100% like that's what they do.
Yep, I agree.
So it's one I haven't tried yet. I'll definitely give it a shot.
It works so good. Also, we when we run the show live that we do at the Earl Scruggs Center, I've had a lot of different people, because it's small. I've let so many different musicians play with it, and despite the style or the instrument that they run, the bass that they run through it, the sound is really good. So
it captures that upright tone, which is so hard to get.
Yep.
Okay.
And tone is everything to me. I can take almost a crappy player with good tone as opposed to a really fabulous player with bad tone. So
agreed.
So it's something to look into. I mean, it works for my stuff. I'm not sure it will for yours, but that is one of the things that I will have to say. They might tell me that I suck as a bass player, but nobody ever tells me I have bad tone. So there you go.
Well, I wish there was a place. It's hard to find.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I gotta drive a good ways to get to a shop where I can test out different bass amps. So it's a little more of a challenge, but
I would love to have a fold neck bass, to tell you the truth. A folding
neck bass?
Yes. Is that what you said? Yes, a folding neck bass.
I actually bought one of those recently, and then I flipped out and was like, this isn't, well, basically it was too heavy. Once that I got that, and I got a flight case.
Oh.
And, with the idea that Aaron and I are going to be flying a lot more,
right,
and I was going to need something when we went out west to Colorado and in that region. And then I realized that if I had to wrestle with that thing in an airport,
I agree.
It was going to be just too much. So I think I'm going to end up going with an electric upright. But,
yeah, I think
it's a great idea if you're strong enough and you don't have a lot of other crap to wrestle with.
Yeah, you just talked me out of it. So if that's the case, I'll just play my electric bass. I mean, yeah, it's
well, then you got to worry about it too, because
true. Oh, I worry.
I don't know if you.
I worry about mine all the time. I mean, even when I'm handling it, I worry about it. Much less someone else handling it. So.
Right, and airline personnel.
Yeah.
I decided it wasn't quite the right thing for me, but I understand where you're coming from.
Well, I mean, the Jenny Keel. I guess Jenny Keel has it down right. I mean, she's adapted to a basic electric upright. But I, you know, my suggestion is maybe I'll rent something if I go out west, an upright bass of some type.
Yeah, and it depends on where you are and where you land when
True.
you get out there. Probably the availability of
This is
of
true.
a bass to rent.
Yeah, if you're in Denver, there should be no problem. You get
Right.
to Telluride, and you got no choice whatsoever. You know, I mean, it's kind of like Boone. You can't go find an upright bass just every day to rent in Boone. Well, maybe because of the school, maybe you can, but
It's must not be that easy because I've had people from the school call me and ask if they can rent mine.
oh, okay.
When they've had a guest artist coming.
Oh well, we shot that down then.
And I had to say no because I needed to play it that
Right.
weekend.
Oh yeah. So I tell you what now. Okay, let's go ahead and touch on the other stuff. You have a couple of. Is this an all-female act?
Yeah, the Mercury Dames.
Yeah. I love the name. The name's great. It's great. It's a great name.
Well, it's based off of the Mercury Dime.
Right.
Mercury Dimes
Sure.
were, okay, so that was when was that? They were around in the 30s, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the music we do is from the 20s and 30s. And so, yeah, and Dames,
You're
so
right.
we call ourselves the Dames for short. But we love the Boswell sisters.
Yeah.
And and Andrews sisters. And then anything with tight, close harmony, three-part harmony. And that's sort of the feature of that band is the harmony singing. And we usually dress up, do a little sort of a vintage look.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Lauren Hayworth is in that group, and she plays accordion. And Kat Chaffin plays guitar. And then I play the bass and run the sound. And we all sing.
Oh, that's super. I mean, you're all over the place. I mean, your music styles.
The Mercury Dames play here and there. We do some local Boone gigs. We don't play much. We probably play 2 or 3 times a year.
That's
Part
cool,
of
though.
that is because for the past few years, I have not even been around in the summer because
Right.
I've been living on Ocracoke
Right.
Island in the summer and playing with Molasses Creek. So I haven't been around up in Boone. But now that I'm going to be in Boone full time for the next few years, and I think the Dames might end up doing a little bit more.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, your styles are. We go from classical to bluegrass to whatever we're calling Aaron to 30s style music.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty broad.
It is. I love it because it keeps me interested. I don't know that I would necessarily get bored if I was just doing one thing. I think actually I would.
I think I know the answer to that. Yeah. I mean, I've seen your life story right here before my eyes. You would get bored with it.
Yeah, I love bluegrass, but playing 1-5 and some walking notes between 3 or 4 chords after,
it's fun.
Great, but then I want to do something else. And I love the classical music, but it's so much work.
It's a lot of work.
I'm always a little relieved when the season's over because
Sure.
then I get this little breather where I'm playing folk music and then I can focus on singing more.
Right.
So, and then I love jazz. The Mercury Dames does sort of vintage vocal jazz. And then Lauren, who I just mentioned, she's in the Mercury Dames. She and I have another group called Belleville Rendezvous, and we play with Andy Page, who is the jazz guitar professor at App State. And we do a whole different genre of jazz.
That's cool.
We've been playing a little bit more lately, and so that's really fun and challenging. And Andy is a melt-your-face guitarist. He's so good, and it's such a pleasure to play with him.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I can't say too much. I play just about any style anybody lets me play. So I do understand. I love music. I can find something I like in just about any genre of music. So it's music's a wonderful thing, and you seem to have a pretty good grip on it.
I feel super blessed or lucky or whatever. Sometimes I pinch myself, and I'm so grateful to be able to do something that I love and I'm so passionate about. And I'm not getting rich by any means, but I'm making ends meet at this point. And well, I was before.
You were, yeah, exactly.
Canceled for COVID-19. Yeah. Right now, I'm sitting at home wondering when I'll be working again.
Right.
But this is a great time to woodshed or
finish. It is. I agree.
Hundreds of unfinished songs. I'm good at starting songs. I'm not good at finishing them. It takes someone else like sort of cracking the whip to make me finish a song or a deadline or something like that. So
I do understand.
I can finish some stuff. I don't know.
I mean, I picked up since this has been going on, and I've been here at home. I've been looking through stuff, pictures, different things that I've done over the years, and there's songs all over this house. I mean, there's box lids, there's fast food bags that have parts of songs that I've started, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about this one. It's so.
Yep.
I mean, there are some positive things about this, I guess, and I've taught a ton of musicians here in the last 2 weeks how to live stream, which is not that hard, but for some reason musicians seem to struggle about figuring out how to do that. You have to protect musicians from themselves a bit. You understand that.
Yeah. Because I can count myself among the people that struggles with I don't know that I struggle with technology. I just avoid it.
I think that's probably the part with every musician is we kind of avoid it because there's always a sound man or somebody, a recording studio. Hey man, I know somebody from a recording studio that can fix that right up for you. So we kind of go out of our way not to learn that stuff.
Plus, I do sound for some of my bands, but I have to admit it's like my least favorite.
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
I like making it sound good, but it's also just I would rather not have to haul all that stuff or mess with it's just always something that can go wrong,
Also,
I don't know why, what's happening here. So
I have
I
this.
know a lot of musicians are doing, streaming concerts, and I need to do one. I've just been dragging my feet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do understand that. I mean, I haven't done them either. I've just helped other people. And the guys I'm in the band, when are we going to do one? Nah, we're not doing one. I'm going to teach everybody else. I don't like to see you guys when we're not quarantined, so no, I'm just joking. But
Well, I finally learned how to use Zoom. I didn't even know Zoom existed before last week, but I'm teaching some music lessons that way. I'm taking some yoga classes that way. I might be doing a collaboration concert. I'm not sure which app we're going to use yet, but with my friend Marcy Brenner out on Ocracoke. She and her husband have the band Coyote, and I think she'll be the person that'll bring me into the digital age with this COVID-19 self-isolation thing.
Well,
she's got a grip on all the new technologies, so that might be the first thing that I end up.
Well, I'm thinking we're going to for a while and maybe permanently see a lot more live streaming than I think it's going to become a part of the music industry a little more than it used to be. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but there's nothing like playing live, but there again, there's a lot of people, okay, the travel part, the sitting up and tearing down, that's what you charge people to play for, not to do the music. So I don't know. It may change a little bit. I would rather go play.
Well, the music industry is it's constantly changing.
It is.
With technology, it's the disappearance of the sale of CDs and records was a thing everybody had to adapt to. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
There's something absolutely irreplaceable about live music.
There's nothing like it.
I have a feeling that won't go away.
I'm hoping you're right. I believe that you are. I can't see. I mean, I've heard people say, well, heck yeah, I can get a front row seat, pay half the concert price, and see you guys do it live and not have to leave home and can drink and don't have to worry about an Uber. A lot of things like that. But and we're probably not going to do it as well as we would if you came to see us live. I mean, 3 people would clap instead of none. So I don't know. It's a different. Also, I see musicians. I guess musicians are going to get stimulus checks. I saw where guitar players aren't going to get one.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting question. I know that this is unprecedented. I guess.
It is. Well, I'm sure it is.
For a lot of folks that are alive now, I've never seen anything like this in the United States. So I guess everybody will be receiving some sort of assistance from the federal government. I do know that as of recently, over the last couple of days, most musicians are independent contractors, and we don't have unemployment insurance, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It's and we were probably some of the first. If I had to guess, it seemed like the first industry to go was concerts and live entertainment.
I think it was.
The size of the audiences.
Yeah, I think it was about the first thing. That and sporting events just disappeared fast.
Yeah, sporting events, right? Yep.
Well, the reason guitar players aren't getting one is because what they'll do with the money. They'll just go buy a guitar.
It's true. And then I'm starting. Well, I don't. It's a 2 upright bass collection right now, but if I had a larger house, it might grow to 3 or 4. I
know. I mean, if I go to Bob's, I see 3 I want down there every time I go. So
yeah.
Which
I'm holding steady at 2 guitars at the moment. I've got a Dreadnought Martin, and then I've got an orchestra model that my friend Gerald Hampton made. He's in Franklinville, North Carolina, and he's a luthier, and he makes some really, really fabulous guitars. So I've got one that he made for me.
My house is so full of guitars and fiddles and mandolins and just about any other musical instrument you can think of. My net worth is more than my true value, I think, through my instruments. But I'm an old guy and I've had a long time to collect, I guess. So, and I don't want to part with them. But if I get this and die, I'm sure they'll all be sold off for not the correct prices. So, and I had this theory one time about where I was going to put my ashes when I'm going to get cremated. I was going to put them in the sound holes of my instruments till somebody said.
I knew you were going to say that.
But then somebody pointed out to me, and they'll go flying everywhere when the first guitar player drops a pick in the sound hole, So maybe it'll go in the F holes of the upright bass. So I don't know.
You have to distribute them through a lot of instruments, or it might dampen the sound.
True, this is true. I would think that instead of
just a little bit in each instrument seems doable.
I think it is, and I was thinking that particularly with fiddles. They put rattlesnake tails in fiddles, so a little bit of my ashes shouldn't hurt anything, and maybe somebody will. Out of all of them, maybe one song will come out of it, and I'd just be tickled to death in whatever eternal place I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty clever idea. I like that.
Well, we'll see. I won't know, I don't guess. So,
well, make sure you stay indoors and don't shake hands with anybody.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with your ashes here.
Yeah, I'm not hoping this happens anytime soon. Even though I'm old, I have a lot of stuff I still want to do. So, well, Kim, I tell you what, this has been. Have we missed anything? Is there anything else I need to know about your story?
Well, no, I don't know. I just want to mention. You asked me about sort of the history of coming to music. I did end up.
Yeah.
At one point, in my when did I graduate? I went back to school at App State, so I did get a degree music business and recording. So I was a music industry studies major. So App State was great in helping me on my way to playing more classical music and getting more familiar with jazz. And then Molasses Creek, I have to give them a shout out. I've been playing with Molasses Creek for 5.5, 6 years now, and out on Ocracoke Island, and that's just a great band, great people to work with, and very, very tightly arranged and sculpted songs, and a really well thought out stage performance as well. So that's been great. And even though I'm not going to be living on Ocracoke again next summer, I'm going to continue to play with them
Travel
as often as possible.
Well, now, are you open? Are you open for jobs these days? I mean, after this breaks, or are your palate too full?
Well, you know what? I have a habit of saying yes to almost everything, which might be the reason I'm driving all over the state all the time, and sometimes find myself feeling a little harebrained. But you know, I had a friend, a colleague from App State, retired colleague from App State, call me after he saw us on WNCW, and he wanted to do some recording and some arranging. So I said yes to that, and it's all the little things I say yes to keep me busy, and sometimes I end up realizing I said yes to too much. But it's my tendency to go ahead and say sure.
Well, now,
if I got time, let's do it.
Are you doing studio work also? Are you getting? Are you getting to do much studio work?
So I mean, not as a session player.
Right.
Anything,
yeah, that's what I was wondering. As a session.
Yes, but with Aaron.
Right.
Aaron, that's something to mention actually. Aaron Burdett has his song Rockefeller. At one point, I don't know, this was weeks ago, it was the most requested song on, I think it was XN Radio or Sirius.
It's a great song. I love it, yeah.
On the bluegrass station, so that's pretty big news. But he's still cranking out songs, and we're going to be recording a handful more. We're doing them in these different chunks and then releasing.
Sure,
releasing one at a time.
Yeah, that's the way.
And then eventually all those will be an album. So that's some studio work that I'm doing. And then Molasses Creek I've been on 3 recordings with them. I end up on a lot of recordings.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Over the years, I have them all lined up in a drawer somewhere. There's a crazy amount of stuff that I've even forgotten I've done, as far as playing bass or singing harmony on people's recordings. So I get to do studio stuff. That's some of the most fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I agree. It is a lot of fun. Aaron's been on the same record label for a pretty good while too, hasn't he?
I think so. Yeah, Organic Records.
Yeah, Organic. Yep, exactly. Yeah. I wanted to make sure you probably gave them a plug here too. So, all right. What else do we need to know?
What else do we need to know? I guess that's it for now. If I get to the point where I finally put out a solo album, which I keep saying I'm going to do.
I was going to ask you about that.
You'll be the first to know. I have songs that I've written in the past that I'd like to arrange or fine tune. Some that I'd like to re-record. But then I also have a lot of songs that have never seen the light of day. And I think for me, number one, I'm so busy playing other people's music and working on other projects that mine gets shoved to the back burner. But also, I haven't really made a decision about if I release a solo album, what genre is it going to be? You know? And just trying to determine the arc of a solo album. Like, should I try to focus more on some jazzy tunes or stick with the Americana? So basically, it's a big blank slate right now, and with a big question mark on it. But
well, good.
Hopefully that'll happen.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Well, I know that you're a busy person, and I do appreciate you taking the time to do this. So
I appreciate you asking me to do it. This has been so enjoyable talking with you, and if it hadn't been for quarantine,
sure,
would have been harder for me to make the time. So there's a lot of blessings for this downtime we've all got right now.
True, there is a lot to it. Well, I do thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you here in the future.
Okay.
Maybe that's at the Earl Scruggs Center.
Sure, I hope so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Take care.
All right. Hey, Kim, you still on the phone?
Yeah.
A 1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you.